Hello there and welcome to this vlog of December 2023. And before I get into today's video, just a little bit of housekeeping. So for those of you that watch this channel on a regular basis, you'll note that I missed last week's recording. This was due to two reasons. One, the day that I was meant to record that particular video from last week, something came up at work and I wasn't able to do it. Then I tried to do it again, kind of set another little bit of time to do it. But on the day that I was meant to, I basically got stranded up north when I came back off holiday and basically had to stay in a hotel. So my two little windows to get all my recording done over December, I was basically just trying to block it out into two sections, basically got kiboshed. So here we are. I'm now very much behind schedule. I'm due to record today with DFA, as you can probably tell by the banners behind me. So I'm just trying to fit this video in as at least something, just to show you that I am still alive and active. In terms of I suppose December on the whole, I have quite a few plans on lore videos and to do some of the campaign operation videos as well. But I think I might struggle to get block time out to do that recording, unfortunately. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. I am still trying to aim to get one video done a week. That is always my aim. But next week's going to be quite busy at work, as is the week after. So I will do my best. That's all I can say at this juncture. Anyway, on to today's video. And this really is a bit of a filler video because I really do like to sit down and, think about the lore videos and things like that. So this is more just like an opinion piece, really. Not related to BattleTech directly, but it's something that I've done a couple of videos on over the last 3 to 4 months. Maybe a bit more than that. I think it might be over a 6-month period or something like that. I've certainly done 2 videos on it. And that's on the direct competitor to BattleTech, which is now actually released by Games Workshop. That is Legions Imperialis. And I just wanted to discuss my thoughts on that now that it is released and we've seen, lots of content trickling through from it, and just tell you where I am currently at with it. So first things first, and full disclosure, I haven't bought the game. I was very much on the fence with it. I think if you go back and watch the last 2 videos that I did, the first video, I think I was really quite enthusiastic about it. This was presumably 5 or 6 months ago because it was due to drop in August this year, but ended up dropping in December. The second video that I did on it was about that delay and how I've kind of moved on, and my hobby project stuff had kind of got in the way of me being able to get Legions Imperialis without it causing any problems for my basically my storage of all my hobby stuff. Because whenever you go in and buy a big game like that, you've got to think about where you're going to put it, how you're going to display the models, things like that. And I felt like that window of opportunity had closed because of another couple of games that I had got into. And I'm just not the type of person who just goes and blunderbusses every game. I know a lot of people will do that, they'll just go and buy everything. I'm much more discerning. I mean, you can kind of see the games that I own on the shelving back there. So there ain't that many of them. I mean, the ones that I do have, I absolutely go full hog on them. So BattleTech being a great example, I'll end up after this next Kickstarter having upwards of 1,500 mechs and units. So like I said, the games that I do have, I am very committed to that in terms of collecting them and painting them. I just try to keep it to a degree which is sensible, as opposed to having 300 games that maybe I only play 5 of them and then you get overwhelmed and you can't do any of the painting or the hobby stuff. So that's just my personal ethos on hobby and game collecting. So that's important that I say that because I don't have it in my hand. We do, though, obviously have some wonderful YouTube channels who will get this, display it all, paint it all, do playthroughs. I was watching Gorilla Miniatures, I think he's called. It's Gorilla something anyway. I'm pretty sure it's Gorilla Miniatures. I think the chap out in Canada did a really good walkthrough of the like the rule books and the miniatures and what he painted, things like that looked fantastic, and he does a great job of that. So we'll deal with the positives first from what I saw on that. And again, I'm kind of coming from the perspective of a BattleTech player here now, but somebody who has played way more Epic and Space Marine historically than BattleTech, like when I was a kid, basically. That's purely because Games Workshop stuff was just very accessible and easy to get in Britain, whereas BattleTech stuff was incredibly difficult to get and expensive because it was all through companies like Relpatha, where you just bought them in like single metal models, which for me now as an adult is fine, but when I was a kid I just wouldn't have been able to afford that. So I had very, very sparing, just several mechs basically when I was a kid. Whereas like you could buy box sets like Space Marine where you got lots of models and you got the Titans and things like that. So I used to get them for like Christmas and birthdays. And, naturally then, because I had the models and more of the models, I played more of that game. So I think I'm quite an interesting study in my current thought process on Legions Imperialis and what I currently think about it. So we'll deal with the positives first. And again, this is just from what I have seen, like online. I think the models look absolutely incredible. Someone was showing like close-ups of the infantry, so obviously like the Space Marines, and I think there are also like there's a faction in that because it's Warhammer 30k technically, so it's set during the Horus Heresy. So they've kind of like got the equivalent of just like regular soldiers in there, and the detail is just exquisite. I mean, I just don't know how they do that. Like in molds that tiny, it's so impressive. So models are brilliant. The tanks look fantastic. We've always known that the actual like the Titans and I'm well out of this lore, but I think they're called Wolfhounds or Wolfhound Titans. They just look very, very good, as you would expect. But we've seen those models before through other gaming systems that Games Workshop have basically done over the last like 5, 6, 7 years. But just massively impressed, by the especially by the infantry. I would, I mean, for BattleTech, we don't have many infantry options at all. You've got like the old Ironwind and Relpatha infantry, which are garbage. I mean, compared to this, it's just night and day in terms of quality. I actually get all my infantry for BattleTech done by third party, or whatever you want to call it, 3D printing, which I absolutely don't feel bad for at all, because the old metal models are so horrific I just can't even entertain them. I kind of get the feeling as well that Catalysts aren't going to do infantry, so it's the one part of my like army which I actually do get unofficial products for, and the 3D printing that I get and use is actually really, really good, just from Etsy, just a little company that do them on Etsy, and they're fantastic basically, and the quality on there is what I consider very good for such tiny little models, because remember you're talking 6mm like soldiers, so they're absolutely minuscule. To be fair, I think that Legions Imperialis is slightly bigger scale than BattleTech, so I think you're going up to like 8-9mm. Either way, it would look a little bit bigger because the Space Marines, who are kind of the mainstay of the armed forces, whether that's like the traitor or the I don't know what you call them, the nice Space Marines, the ones that don't turn traitor, the Loyalist Marines, I think that might be their official term. They are going to be a bit bigger because they're more like BattleTech elementals. So the people inside those suits are like 6.5, 7 feet tall, whatever. And they'll just be even that little bit bigger than something like the Elementals because of the scale that the game is in. At least that's what it looks like anyway. But even that, the detail, even though they've got a little bit more leeway with the detail because it's just a tiny bit bigger than BattleTech, still incredibly impressive how detailed those models look. The tanks, which are really interesting to see, because obviously BattleTech will very, very be shortly doing a full line of plastic tanks when the Mercenary Kickstarter gets released. we've seen some of those. Like, we've got plenty of examples of those. Some of those have been sent out as well. I know, for instance, that DFA got some of those tanks. Sure that Aaron got I think like the Demolisher. I can't remember. It was a long time ago that he and I spoke about that. But from what I saw on that, we are getting like really top quality miniatures here as well. I would probably say that the Games Workshop one for this look better than the ones that BattleTech are doing, or the one that CGL are doing. That doesn't surprise me though, because you're talking about Games Workshop, who are a plastics company and a miniatures company. They've got a big factory that churn these things out, whereas Catalyst have got to use like third parties out in China to make the plastic models. But again, you're talking fine lines. You're not talking like one is way better than the other. I just think it might have that like extra 5% of detail. And I do think as well that, and this again goes down to size of company, because Games Workshop are just such a bigger company than Catalyst. I think those tanks look slightly more interesting as well. Like they've got, like bumpers on the front, and there's like multiple guns, and I don't know, it looks a bit more tanky than the BattleTech tanks that I've seen, but we don't have them in our hand yet, or I've not been able to see them in great detail, so I'll probably just park that opinion for now. But either way, if you are going into this just to get the models, then go for it, because I do think the models for Legions Imperialis look brilliant. Now, this is where it gets a little bit spicy. That's actually the only good thing I've got to say about this. This isn't going to be a, one of those clickbaity negative videos or anything. It's just that when I was going through and watching the YouTube footage, it just dawned on me very quickly that actually I've got no interest in this whatsoever. And I'm going to tell you why I've got no interest in it, and I'm going to tell you why I actually haven't bought this and have really no intention of buying it. Actually, no, I don't think I can buy it because everything's sold out. So let's just talk about that segues me nicely into the first point here, because this is a commercial thing, and anyone that's kind of regularly using Games Workshop will know this. I do buy a lot of Games Workshop products. You can just see peeping out behind me up here is like my Blood Bowl collection. That's like every team from 2nd edition. As soon as anything releases from Blood Bowl, I automatically buy it because I love that game. So I'm acutely aware that how the Games Workshop cycle runs. Like, they'll bring out something, it will be popular, it will sell, and then they don't necessarily redeem that particular item or get it back in stock very quickly, and that can be very frustrating, leads to all kinds of problems of people like paying very, very inflated prices on eBay, etc. Got to say, with Blood Bowl, I've never had an issue with that. Like, things do sell out quickly, but let me just example for the hobby store that I use, which is called Alchemist Workshop out in Cheshire, I think they are. Great company, by the way. I always plug them where I can because I buy a ton of stuff for them. They've got wonderful BattleTech stuff in stock as well. So if you're in the UK and looking at BattleTech stuff, I heartily recommend Alchemist Workshop. They are fantastic. For Blood Bowl though, what will usually happen is, and I saw this with a Vampire team, as soon as they kind of put pre-orders on, it sold out in like 15 minutes. So I didn't get it on like day one. But what I then noticed with the Vampire collection is like 5-6 days later, they had like 20 more pre-ordered. And that's fine, right? So you might have to wait a few more days to get it, but no problem whatsoever. You can get that stuff. It's not difficult to get. It's not hard to get. So great. This, though, Legions Imperialis, is, I was going to say 40k. It's not 40k. It's 30k, but it's still in that Warhammer 40,000 universe, right? And that stuff is uber popular, sells very quickly, and Games Workshop is nefarious for doing these like releases and everything just selling out like this, and then the fan base getting frustrated by it, and they're talking about like limited releases, then you get scalpers buying them up so that they can sell them for a bigger profit online. That obviously goes on, but it also doesn't take away from the fact that this is an incredibly popular product. I mean, Alchemist Workshop, as an example, restricted all sales of this for one box set per household. That's to try and stop like the scalping. There was loads and loads as well of like little additional packs. Like they had terrain packs, they had like extra tank packs, infantry packs, things like that. Some of that might still be in stock, but what I did notice is that the core game just like flew off the shelf. Now, I was actually on holiday when it all flew off the shelf, or at least I might have been going on holiday within a few days, and I just felt, well, I'll just leave it a couple of days. I say naively because now it's transpired that I don't want it anyway, so I'm kind of glad that I missed the boat on it. But when I'd last looked, it was just sold out everywhere. Um, that's not necessarily to say that it will be the case. Like they might, if now that they've seen it's popular, they might do another run like next month, and there might be another. You know, I think I did see Alchemist Workshop had hundreds of them. There were like 180, 200, something like that, available for pre-order that all just went. So, you know, I'm sure Games Workshop are looking at that, and I'm sure they've got their own metrics and data analysis, which will tell them when it needs to go back into stock. I can imagine this as well. It's not going to be a core game, and that's one thing that really puts me off getting it, because unlike 40k, where they put so much time and emphasis on that, and you will get restocks, and it does sell quickly, but then it restocks quickly usually, and not always, but that's usually how it works. For this game, I feel like the second that Games Workshop basically lose interest or see something else that they want to focus on, this game will just be forgotten and it won't be restocked. And that's where my headspace is at now. And again, having known and dealt with Games Workshop for years, and it is a company I absolutely love. I know that there's this like general consensus that everyone's got to give heat to them. I think their models are brilliant. I love their like paint ranges. I know a lot of people will say Army paint are better. I inherently disagree with that. I think Citadel paint is fantastic. Yes, it's expensive for what you get, but it works, and it's really, really good, tested hobby paint. Again, each to their own, so you might have a different line that you like. That's absolutely fine. But for me, Games Workshop are just a very consistently good company when it comes to the models. There's a whole different discussion to be had over like rule sets and the carousel system of them like bringing out new versions every 3 years, all that stuff. But for me, as a company, for what I get out of them, I love Games Workshop. So I'm not giving them any heat for this per se. It's just that I just don't really want to get on another Games Workshop carousel, and seeing how quickly these things sell out, it just really puts me off, because I just don't trust in the fact that they will be putting into this fully. Why I think they're not going to be putting into this fully is because they went down the 30k route instead of the 40k route. I've spoken about this multiple times. I think a lot of people who were interested in this game have talked about it as well. I'm not bothered about just having like the Imperium forces. I wanted to be able to go and collect like the Orcs, the Eldar, the Tyranids, like the more interesting, wacky and weird, wonderful forces of the 40k universe. But instead, we just get, the legions of the traitors and the loyalists, and that frankly bores me a little bit, because BattleTech is a game that's like really set in that human world in reality, and that's kind of what this is for Games Workshop. This is what Legions Imperialis is for them, and I feel like I've got that already with BattleTech, and obviously I love BattleTech, so I feel like I don't need something extra with that. What I would have liked is a 6mm quirky mad game. That I probably would have bought into. And if they ever do release like a Legions Imperialis, but with, like the alien forces, then I absolutely would consider going in for it. Because I think at that juncture as well, I'll know that they are like deadly serious about it and invested, because that gives them a lot more scope to grow, do more models, that kind of thing. And that absolutely may well happen. This may have just been a tester to see what the 6mm community within 40k wants. Because if it bombed, then you probably don't want to do like, you spend loads on like all the redesigns for the Eldar Titans and the Orc tanks and stuff like that you'd have to do for a 6mm game. I think it's much easier for them to do with the Space Marines, because the Imperium forces, because they've already got like the two other games, which is Titanicus and the one with the little ships, what people amusingly call Fly Around, because it's not called that though, but like you're basically in the like the little drop ships and whatnot going around and shooting one another, and it all kind of interlinks to Legions Imperialis. It's all can be made in the same 6mm game. So I kind of get what they've done. It's just that for me, I'm very much like, I don't see any like massive benefit really of going in for this at this moment in time. We'll keep on the commercial thing, then I'll kind of go into a little bit more detail on the intrinsics of why I didn't go in for this. But the commercial front, I actually think that, and I know Games Workshop is traditionally seen as very expensive. I worked it out when I was looking at buying it that I could, and this was at a discount, remember, because companies like Alchemist Workshop will give you like a standard 20% discount on Games Workshop products. I worked it out that I could get everything. So that was like the core game set, all the not expansion packs, but like the box sets with like the tanks in it, the infantry, the scenery, the terrain, things like that. It came in at just short of like £500, which is approximately like $600. For a new game and for something that's such high quality, I was absolutely fine with that. So I mean, again, I say that from a position of privilege because I spend quite a lot of money on the hobby. Some people may really flinch at that and think, my goodness, that's really expensive. And yes, it is expensive. But again, for me, if I'd have really wanted the game, I absolutely would have been willing to spend that much on it because, again, I know how much goes into these games and people just see it as, oh, you're just buying these little pieces of plastic for so much money. It's like, no, it has to be designed. It has to be produced in the factory. They have to ship all the like the cardboard and the gaming rules in from China. You're not paying for the plastic per se. You're paying for the endeavour of them actually getting it to the shelf, which takes a ton of time and money and people to do that. So to get everything, basically that would have been available across November for I don't know what it was. Say for instance it's £500. I think that's actually a very, very solid deal. So I've got no complaints on the financial front. Moving on from the commercial though, and we'll talk a little bit about what you got in these sets and my issues with it to a lot of extent. So this is really beyond the commercial stuff. So this is the reason why I've just been very much meh on the whole like Legions Imperialis thing with the delays and everything else that's come along with it. So the first thing that I noted, and this really wound me up, there's no board in the box set. Now, Games Workshop and boards, so singular, they've made the best decision I think Games Workshop made over the last decade was those fold out, I want to say, are they like 32 by 22 gaming mats? I can't remember what I think it's that in terms of its measurements. They are amazing, right? So this, when I came back into the hobby properly and really started to get into it, was during the first release of Kill Team, which I think's to 2018, so about 5 years ago. That's when I really, really got back into things. And it was Kill Team that really got me back into, the routine of collecting and painting hobby again, or, miniatures again. I really do think that those boards, it allowed people like me, I'd come back into it. I had no terrain or anything at the time. So just being able to kind of have a flat pack board that I could just very quickly place out, and you only need a few bits of scatter terrain on a Kill Team table and you're ready to go. And that was amazing. Like growing up, it was always like, well, you get a table, you have to put like a mat, a dinner table cloth down or something that just looks a bit rubbish, or a green, like for grass or something. Like there was just, and again, when I was a kid, they had nothing like what you can get now, because now there are like third-party companies where you can buy like proper neoprene mats. Obviously, like BattleTech does that kind of thing as well. Lots of like different kind of mat systems that we've got on offer. So I think Games Workshop started this like real, just a different ethos on just that playing area, and they looked fantastic as well. Like the Kill Team ones I still use to this day. They're brilliant to use. They're really hard wearing, and I can't speak highly enough of them or the person that came up with that idea to put a, whatever it is, 32 by 20 inch, 22 inch, fold out board, which basically goes down to like this size, right? So when you fold it all back together, it just basically sits in the box. It's an incredible, incredible, simple invention. My problem with Games Workshop though is they never developed this. So, and I tell you why I know this, because I've got friends in the hobby who are like obsessive 40k fans, and like new Kill Team, things like that. Whenever they bring one of these like new boards out, it's literally like the same board. So it's always just like random desert, dusty setting. And I think that's a massive, massive error. Like, if I were them, I'd have a whole array of different boards. I'd have like the snow one, the chaos one, yes, do the desert one as well. Have the green one. And there are some, there were some different boards. I actually went and bought some Warcry box sets for the board, just for the boards basically, because I don't collect Warcry. But on that, you got some that had like an ancient ruin board on there that had some, it looked like stonework and like a dirt area and trees and shrubs and stuff like that. So there was they did some things, but they just didn't bring it full hog. And what they've done now, what they've done with Legions Imperialis, is there is no board in there. And I was desperate to see Games Workshop 6mm board, which I believe, and someone will correct me if I'm wrong here, but I am pretty sure you got those for Titanicus. And it was like an Ashen Wasteland type thing. And I would love that for 6mm. 6mm. Obviously, you can use like the Kill Team terrain for, for doing 6mm games, but it's not meant for that. And you'll see things like big skulls in the, like painted on there on the graphic. And for me, I could never do that, or at least I'd have to cover it up with something because it would just take me out of the game, and I'm quite pedantic about things like that. But I would have just loved like a 6mm version. Titanicus, I don't think you can get these games now for love nor money. And I also think that, they don't reprint them anymore, so I don't think you can get these boards. And they've just decided to go all in on this 6mm game, not put any boards in there. So that really frustrates me, because I am pretty sure, had I seen that they'd have boards in there, I would have fought to go and get this, because I just would have wanted the board. And then, if I'm not interested in the game, you can just sell the sprues on eBay or whatever. But I really was keen to see the board. That doesn't exist. Another major point here, and this is Games Workshop again making what I consider bizarre decisions, and just, two reasons here. One, for the crossover with my other 6mm passion, which is obviously BattleTech. I was interested in just getting the terrain from the box set, because you can obviously use that as like buildings in BattleTech. I could have used it if I played Legions Imperialis. Turns out you don't get any terrain in the box set, or there certainly didn't look any in there from what I'd seen. You have to buy it separately. Now, I don't mind buying it separately, but from a more commercial point of view, and this is my understanding from the rule set, Legion Imperialis is very much like an urban warfare game, right? Where your troops are going in buildings and firefighting, and you have to take the building as an objective, and you're not putting buildings in there. So straight away you're telling people that they've got to spend an extra X amount of pounds. And knowing Games Workshop, it won't be cheap. In fact, I know it's not cheap. We'll talk about that in a second. But if you just want like the standard building set, I think it's like 40 quid. What I forgot to mention when I talked about the price points is there was a big terrain collector set, and it was near on for £100. And that's like, okay, Games Workshop, what are you doing? Because you can, for building, it's not something exciting, right? Like, I can understand you buy like a model that you fix up, you paint it, it's part of your army. This is just buildings. Keep in mind that BattleTech, and I know it's a completely different scenario, because when they did Alpha Strike, we just got little cardboard buildings in the Alpha Strike box set, but they were absolutely fine for just pick-up games. Open the box, you can play the game immediately, and Alpha Strike will cost you, I think, about $70-80, and you get everything in there. You get the mechs, the rules, you get the paper mats, and so it's not as good as the Games Workshop fold-out board or the really, really nice Games Workshop terrain. But for a casual player who's just interested in playing a pick-up game, that's fantastic. You cannot underestimate the power of that commercially. Just that you can buy the game and play it almost immediately, and you just have to read the rules. And that's where I kind of get very, very confused with like Games Workshop's approach to how they have done this. Again, not for me commercially, because I would have quite happily bought the buildings for 100 quid if they were good, but they're all very, very gothic looking. Now, I like the 40k or 30k in this case aesthetic. I think it looks really nice. You know, that really like old cathedral type buildings, things like that. However, does not in the slightest well, sorry, I'll rephrase that. It's not something that I would ever use in BattleTech, right? It's too elaborate, it's too fancy. BattleTech is a much more grounded universe. It's much just like our modern world with like, you know, I mean, you know, the we got those building releases. I don't know if it was Gale Force 9 or can't remember who did it actually. It was somebody who did the you know, the new sets of the buildings that you could buy. And they were just as you expect with BattleTech. I've bought them, got them downstairs. They look fantastic. They're all like pre-painted, but it's got that very like Games Workshop. Sorry, it's got a very BattleTech feel to them. It's almost like modern looking. Looks fantastic. So, was very, very happy with the look and the feel of those. But for these will just not transport over very well to BattleTech at all. Which again, I think is a real shame. And again, just with my commercial hat on here, I think that's a bad mistake by Games Workshop, because I think if you're trying to entice the BattleTech crowd, make something that the BattleTech players could use in their own terrain space as well. So again, that puts me off buying it, because I just feel like, what's the point now? Like, why would I bother, like, on a game that I'm probably not going to play that often anyway? Like, I just wanted to see what it's like, and I can't realistically use anything from it in BattleTech. I can't, you know, I don't get the fold out boards. I just, again, they're not making it easy from me. That's kind of how I'd articulate that. The final thing, and then I'll wrap up, and this is more just a point of interest, really. It's how Games Workshop do box sets, I suppose. But when I watched Ash's channel on the Guerrilla Miniatures, and he was kind of going through all the forces, it very quickly becomes apparent that the forces are unbalanced. And what I mean by that is like they're not completed. They've basically put two half sprues of forces. So it's like the Marine force and then the other, you know, like the regular soldier forces. They put those in the box, so you can kind of make like half a force of each, or you can combine forces. And I just feel to myself, like, you know, straight away I'm like, okay, so now you've got to go and buy those extra packs to kind of fulfill the forces. And again, not for me so much, but for people trying to get into this, I'm like, that straight away is a point of confusion. Whereas I look at something like the Alpha Strike release, and Alpha Strike was really, really simple, right? You had 8 Inner Sphere mechs, 2 lances, fantastic, and they were basically the Northwind Highlanders like force. And then you had the clan Jade Falcon Star. So that was like just 5 mechs from the Star. So it was always basically 5 versus 8. So you got 13 models. You could get like relatively, similar like battle value or point value. Obviously in BattleTech it's a lot easier because you can just run different variants of mechs to increase or decrease the battle value, point value. Sure, you can do that in things like Legions Imperialis and the Games Workshop 6mm games as well. But again, I feel like they've put so many little, not big barriers to entry, but just small barriers to entry on this, that I just now feel like all the, any kind of passion that I would have had for this project has just died. And now I can't get it anywhere. And I do think that is problematic. And I do think for Games Workshop, when they've got people like me, who are like their key demographic, just saying, yeah, just not that interested. Like, as soon as BattleTech bring anything out, I'm there for that. I always buy it. It's always, something affordable and colourful and interesting. Like the Mercenaries packs that they've done over the last, year. But for this, I'm just like, I don't know, everything about it. Again, the artwork, it just doesn't fill me with inspiration. It feels like they've done it just that someone at the board level has said, we need a competitor to BattleTech, because BattleTech's becoming very, very prominent again. And this is the best that they can do. And I don't believe they're believe in it. Therefore, I really can't believe in it. And until I think I am convinced that they will, and I'd probably say it should be something that we'll see on the 40k side. So when they start introducing aliens or the alien races to this, at that juncture, I might have buy-in. But right now, I'm afraid, no. I think as well, again, and I think probably speak for a lot of BattleTech fans here, I am awaiting a ridiculous amount of miniatures on this Kickstarter. I think I'm going to get 350 miniatures, something like that. So that will keep me in painting for probably 1.5, 2 years. So I don't feel like I need another project alongside that right now. So I know that they've released this so that they can, what they perceive that they can capitalize on the new popularity of 6mm with a resurgence of BattleTech. But I do feel in some ways like I've got a little bit of not hobby burnout, but I'm very much like I've got enough going on, and I've really just like got into other gaming sets as well. Like I love the new Hero Quest game by Osbro. I think the miniatures, the new rule set for that, it's a similar rule set, but they've like tidied it up a lot. It's just really, really well done. I got another Aliens expansion pack, which is really good. So it's just like it's basically like the missing 2 crew members from the Aliens movie back in the 80s, and they've got like specialized aliens now. So I basically made that last night. And just, I'm like, that stuff that I'm more interested in is like little contained games that are just quite easy to collect for, as opposed to like, going onto a Games Workshop carousel where I just feel like I was having to spend a lot of money on it. And, there's just a lot going on there, which I'd just be like, the really obsessive part of my like hobby collecting is focused so much on BattleTech. I don't really need something to run alongside that. And if I did, I'd want it to be very different. I'd want it to be like, just complete different to BattleTech. That's why I'd want aliens in a 6mm Games Workshop game, because I've got the human like drama in the BattleTech universe. But that's my personal feeling on it. Anyway, we're coming up to about 40 minutes, so I think that's enough of a tirade on this particular subject. Gonna have to go anyway because I've got to get back to work, and then I'll be recording with DFA shortly later this afternoon. So again, hopefully my recording schedule will get back to normal, and you'll see regular Friday drops from here on out. But if not, again, no, I've not gone anywhere. It's just because my schedule is probably defeating me. Anyway, on that note, I shall leave it. I shall thank you very much for watching, and I'll hopefully catch you again next time.